Hey Phoenixes, welcome to today's chat. If this is the first time you're seeing me, I am Daniela Langford. Welcome to the Redesign Your Life Forever group. I'm so happy to have you with us. I hope you really get a lot out of being here. So what today we are going to be talking about is self-love and acceptance, of course, which is a huge topic and that we could be sitting here talking about forever. But in particular, I'd like to discuss what I have found as I've worked with people through this, is that it's really an indicator, a symptom of something bigger. So this inevitably comes up every time I work with somebody, because it is really kind of what they say, the root of all evil is the lack of self-love and acceptance and self-compassion. So a lot of times what comes up and what we find while I work with people is that the lack of self-love, see, I've got my notes right here so I don't get too off track today. So the lack of self-love, I find, is an indicator or symptom of not being in alignment with your highest self, with your purpose, with your spirit, with what you are here to be working on and playing through. Basically ignoring all the signs, ignoring your intuition, not trusting yourself. I like to really point out that it's I want to say self-destructive tendencies, but so many things can be self-destructive that we don't realize, like not taking better care of yourself, not feeding yourself well, not incorporating a light physical exercise to get your body moving. All of these things, in addition to just sitting in front of the TV, in addition to not giving yourself the time and care that you deserve because you're busy serving everyone else, thinking that you're doing something good when in fact you're giving from a place that has nowhere left or nothing left to give from. So you have to start, as good old Michael said, with the man in the mirror. And that is what I find the most people have the hardest time with. When we work together with the mindset work and with the inner work where we dive in, it's the self-love. We all, like for myself, I really, truly, for a long, long time, despite all advantages that I have and had in life, we all make mistakes when we're young and stupid. We do stupid shit. And I believed that I kind of had to atone for all of that forever. You feel guilty about certain things that either you did or you didn't do or you should have done, or all kinds of things. What do they call them? 3 sisters of regret. Shoulda, coulda, and woulda. So we carry those things around with us. And not only those things that we've done that we consider mistakes that, are irreparable, we believe that they're irreparable because of the, conditioning that we've received, not only from our parents and their parents and their parents, all of those coming down, but also just from school, from religion, from all kinds of places that, when we're young, inform how we feel about ourselves and our self-worth and our value and, what we have to give to the world. So that is, of course, what happened with me. And as I'm sure it's happened with everybody else. And, in my case, I developed a false bravado and was kind of like the don't fuck with me chick, because I really didn't feel like that I could actually stand up for myself. So I created a false barrier that, this attitude and this, reputation. I created actually a false reputation for myself so that people wouldn't mess with me, because I really felt like not only could I not stand up for myself, but that I didn't have a right to. So life then mirrored what I believed about myself. It gave me those situations, which ultimately culminated in a pretty gnarly one, having to, live with a narcissist as an empath, which, I posted that article about, which is like, yeah, pretty much what happened. And, it really, really showed me like that was, one of the big things that broke the camel's back, is I had to realize that this is because that I don't love myself enough, that I'm not showing myself enough respect and acceptance and compassion, and the universe is mirroring it back. So self-love, the lack of self-love, I should say, leads to making those poor decisions that put us in those predicaments where we are not honoring ourselves, where we're not honoring our truth, our intuition, our inner feelings. And we're not honoring what makes us feel good, what makes us happy. And we're doing that to receive, for lack of a better word, to receive the love and affection from other people. That's basically what's happening, is that we believe so little in ourselves that we believe that all validation and acceptance and permission to be ourselves must come from somewhere else. So when we can love ourselves and give that validation and that time and acceptance and compassion and affection to ourselves, we don't need their permission anymore. We don't need somebody else's validation to tell us that we're worthy of love. We don't need, permission to be joyful. All of these things, we don't need permission to make lots of money. We don't need permission to be abundant and be happy and go live and travel and do whatever we want to do. And because there's a guilt that goes along with that. It says, oh, well, if you make lots of money and you travel, you must be, a swindler and irresponsible, and all kinds of these things. But it's just simply not true. So what I've discovered is that most of us, the reason why this keeps happening, because we stay on the cycle and people are like, why in the fuck do I keep doing this to myself? And I had to think about it too. Why did I keep doing it to myself for years until it culminated in some of those experiences that really just started to smack me over the head? And it was like, okay, if you don't start listening now, it's going to keep getting worse. And that's usually how it does. And some of us get, 2x4s, and some of us get cinder blocks, and some of us get whole houses dropped on us. And, it's really just being able to realize that is out of a lack of self-love, that we are literally attracting all of those things to us to show us that mirror. So people are like, why? Why does this keep happening? And I have, the research that I've done and continue to do, and, new stuff comes out every day. But what we are finding out is that most of us are addicted. Yeah. What did I just say? Yes, most of us are addicted. We're addicted to the stress and the anxiety that it causes. We're addicted to needing outside validation, support, permission. I'm like releasing energy here as I'm talking this about you. I'm like, woo, my body's like, yes, let it out. We're addicted to needing the validation from other people, needing their love. We're addicted to it. We're addicted to the stimulation from that, we get from being accepted by other people. I know that sounds crazy. And it's not the negative feeling, of course, that we're addicted to, because, hopefully nobody's addicted to anxiety and stress and depression. I mean, God forbid. But what happens is when we experience those things, as we've talked about way early on, with stress, is that they release hormones and chemicals into our body. And physiologically, we become addicted to those chemicals and those hormones being released because that's what we're used to. That's what we've had since childhood. That's probably what we've experienced pretty much our entire life, up until a certain point. And because that is what predominantly was the energy and the feeling and the chemical makeup at the time, that's what we're comfortable with. That's what we're used to because it's familiar. So because it's familiar and it's what we're used to, our ego brain is what's telling us is like, oh, okay, well, that's what's safe and that's what's acceptable. And this is what you should be feeling, if everything is as it should be, which is a complete load of crock, an absolute complete load of crock. But that is why, because we're getting hit with a double whammy. So not only are we getting the naysayers talking at us in our head, because everybody's got a naysayer that talks at them in their head. Nobody that I've met ever doesn't have some kind of voice or feeling or something that constantly tries to make them feel bad. That's the ego's job, is to keep you safe. We've talked about this a lot. So poor thing, just doing its damn job. And that's kind of how you have to start thinking about it. It's like that, poor little misguided thing is just doing its damn job the hardest it can. So all we have to do is not listen to it. But that in and of itself is very difficult, or can be. So once you have that, and then you may have outside naysayers as well, that they are, basically slave to their own naysayers in their head, and all of those poor feelings that they have about themselves and their self-love and worth and acceptance and all of those things that they're laboring under. So you've got that. And then On top of all of that, you have the hormone chemical release, the physiological response that happens that you get used to, you get comfortable with, and you get addicted to feeling that because you go through withdrawals basically. A lot of times I see, it happened with me a little bit. It happens with a lot of people, is that they want to start backsliding because you're going through those withdrawals of feeling that anxiety and that stress, and it feels awkward and weird to not be stressed out by certain things anymore. You kind of feel like it's not the appropriate response that people are expecting you to have. So there's going to be weirdness. But that's a whole process that you go through, when you go through this process, which is why there are people like me on this planet that want to help people like you we've gone through it. We're still going through it. We're diving deeper every day, diving into our depths so that we can help you dive into yours, because we know how much it sucks and it's crazy, and like the tarot that I pulled earlier in the week, it's like, yes, it's going to feel oppressive, and yes, it's going to feel weird and awkward. But if you can hold on to that faith of being true to you, of going deep and diving deep and doing the work, the light is at the end of the tunnel. So then comes the question, of course, after all of this, comes the question, how do we get out of it, right? So here's the juicy bit that I'm sure that you all have come for, is my top 3, I like to say ways, or top 3 ways, I guess, to start loving yourself today. Because I get a lot of the time, just even passing people in the street, and and we have this conversation. They're like, okay, so then what do you tell people? And of course my clients ask me, it's like, okay, so what do we do? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, well, luckily it's very simple. Technically, it's very simple, but it does require repetition, and it does require committing time to yourself to complete these tasks for yourself. So I would have to say, going from the bottom up, number 3 would be take time every day, if you can, to write out what you've done physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What have you accomplished today? That was, like I said, mental, spiritual, emotional, any of that, physical. What have you accomplished today? That could be, did you do your meditation? Did you go for your walk? Did you put makeup on today? Did you get out of bed? It could be, did you make yourself a nice meal? Anything. All of these things count as accomplishments, because when you start expanding yourself and you start doing this inner work, your naysayer is going to try and hit hard, because of course it doesn't want to let go control of you, because it's got control of this awesome, amazing vehicle that you're supposed to be driving. So when you have a list of things, and you have days and days and days and days of them, when you have a list of things that says, hey, no, I got out of bed. I was feeling fucking depressed. I hated my life, but I got out of bed. And you know what? Not only did I get out of bed, I made myself some food. Damn good food too. Yeah. It gives you something to be proud about. It gives you a list of things to show that you're being consistent, to encourage you to be consistent, because then you want to make a list of it. You almost want to check it off and say, yep, did my meditation today? Did my walk today? And then when you're in your write-up, it's almost as if you miss those things. You notice them even more, that you're missing out on your consistency. So I really, really encourage people to write out the things that they accomplish, because there is nothing worse that your naysayer hates than the evidence. The evidence that you don't need its input, or anybody else's for that matter, girl. You don't need its input to thrive, right? And to accomplish and to be proud of yourself. Without that validation, it hates it. It hates it. So that is definitely part of my top 3, is taking the time to write out your accomplishments for the day. Just get a notebook, a cheap old notebook from any of the big box stores, and just make that your thing. It's easy to do. Easy to do. It just takes time. Another one, number 2, is going to be actually scheduling that time for yourself. Now, at first, I really did not believe that this was like a big deal, that you needed to do this. But the more I dived deep and the more I tried to up-level myself and not give that time to myself, I found that I just burned myself the heck out. Just burnt out every time, slid back, and ended up doing a whole bunch of things that, slid my behavior back, slid my mindset back, as a back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And only, after, I was working with my mentor and things of, I had gotten a mentor that was like, so I can figure out what the hell am I doing? Because, as empaths and as indigos, we can have different sort of idiosyncrasies about our journey, that we don't understand if someone doesn't point it out to us. So I had, somebody say, well, you're not scheduling the you time. You're not putting in the self-care time. That's what self-care time is putting in the time for you. Whether you block off time to give yourself a pedicure and paint your toenails, or a bath, or go to the park and read a book, for an hour, or go take yourself to lunch once a month. Just any of these things. I mean, the list can go on and on. Of course, the creative time, giving yourself dance time, signing up for a class and teaching yourself something new. That's a really, really major one, actually. You're getting lots of double and triple whammies when you start teaching yourself new and creative things in your self-care time. That's a whole nother subject for a whole nother day, but the one I absolutely love and really, really have had the proof in my own life about how important it is to give yourself that time, and not just every once in a while, consistently. That's kind of what the, meditation and, taking yourself for a walk and things of that nature every day count for your daily self-care, because those are just as important. Okay, so my top number one thing, number one. And it's the hardest thing that I find for people to do. It's the simplest. It takes the least amount of time, but it's the hardest one to do. Go in front of a mirror and look yourself in the eyes. Don't look away, and tell yourself that you love you, that you accept you, that you give yourself compassion, even where you are, regardless of where you are. Doing that consistently, wake up in the morning, say, hey, good morning, I love myself, or hey, I love you, into the mirror at yourself. And then at night, saying it out loud is very powerful, but if you have to start by saying it in your head, that works too. It really changes your energy signature to show love and compassion and acceptance and gratitude towards yourself. And not just yourself, your higher self, but your vehicle. Most people don't just have one car their entire life. They have multiple. This is one. And I hate to compare this wonderful, magnificent, bioelectrical system that we have here as a car, but in very layman terms, get one car. You only get one. YOLO, or whatever they like to say. What are the kids are saying these days? I don't even know. But really, you only get one. Yes, they say they've come up with ways to replace bits and parts and pieces and here and there and yonder, and that's very fantastic for a lot of amazing people. But you only get one consciousness in this body at this time on this earth. Practicing this technique often requires a lot of deep diving that goes into why you don't feel worthy of love, why you don't love your body. All of these things are very important to actually dig into, because if you just cover them up with a band-aid of like, oh, I love myself, oh, I'm so wonderful. Yes, it does help. It does. I'm not going to lie that it doesn't. But it's not going to get to the root of the evil. It's not going to actually root out the weed. You've got to weed the garden of the mind. You have to get in there and get the roots, or else it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing, and you're going to have to keep dealing with it over and over again until you actually go back and take the time. And that's what I love to do and actually do every day for my clients, is we hold space and I say, hey, so let's deep dive, and we go into those things and we bring them back up, which yes, they suck, but that's the whole reason why you have to bring it back up and decide that you're going to make a different decision about yourself and about the environment, about that situation. And that is what really changes things, so that you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, and mean it, and start to begin to change your inner world so that you can see that reflected in the environment and the people around you. Because yes, you may have assholes in your life. We all have assholes in our lives. But if you really start to treat yourself well, and you are putting off that energy, that you're doing the work, and that you're a happier, more loving person towards yourself, more accepting and more compassionate, I guarantee you that assholes are going to have a harder time treating you like an asshole than they did before you did all the work. Because the energy that you put off, and because it infects your environment. It really does. We know that the heart puts off an electromagnetic field and it affects people and it affects things, and we all have effect on one another. So if you start with the man in the mirror, there's going to be effects. It just has to be done consistently, and you have to be committed to yourself to do these things daily, weekly, monthly, and every time something hard comes up. So if gaining that love and respect and acceptance for yourself is something that you've really found that you've struggled to do, that you can't find anything that you love about yourself, or, you know, that you just really have a hard time holding on to it, and if you'd like somebody to help you find out why, what is that thing? Deep dive with you. Find out what is that trigger that is holding you back, that is keeping you on that hamster wheel. I would love to be the one to help you with that. Hold space for you so that we can figure out what exactly that weed root is that's been holding you back, that's been holding you on that hamster wheel. What is that feeling, that chemical that's giving you, you know, that hormone that you're addicted to, so that we can start weeding that out and figuring out what is holding you back. And then we can install some actual actionable steps in a schedule. I help people build a schedule all the time where they say, what the heck, how am I going to fit all this in? And we go, okay, so let's figure it out. And we go through their schedule weekly and we figure out where we can actually tuck all these little things in. And it really helps people actually be able to maintain that consistency. And you would be amazed at how fast people can up level when you can actually build that consistency into their daily routine. So that is what I love to help people on, is building that in, holding that space for you so that we can figure out what's really going on. What is really going on? Because you can tell yourself that you love yourself all you want, but if you don't go down there and dig those weeds out, they will keep popping up in your garden, girl, and it's not cute. You have to keep dealing with that shit, and it's bull. So let's help you not deal with it anymore, because that is what I am here for. I love to help people achieve their greatness. That is where my joy is. That is where my greatness comes from, is helping you achieve yours. I don't even want to be famous. That's not what this is about. This is not me about making money. This is not about me being famous. This is literally about my calling, that I literally derive all of the joy in the world. And this is 100% honesty. I derive all of the joy in the world from uplifting the other people around me. When they are succeeding, it is a reflection upon how much love I have shown them that they can give themselves. So if that is something that sounds like would actually interest you, which I would hope so, but if you would like some help with that, if you would like someone to hold your hand and hold space for you and help you figure these things out, I would be honored to be the one to help you. So you can always PM me and say, you can always comment I'm in. You can always PM me. You could click directly on the scheduling link and we can schedule a time for you to get your call. So the 1 hour, 45 minute to an hour clarity call this week, because it's Self-Love Week and Louise Hay Week, basically. And I wanted to honor her work and how important her work has been for me in my own evolution, and how much I love to use her work in my own coaching, because it's just, her words are really just so timeless and so perfect. Is that for this week, I'm going to be giving away a free downloadable meditation that is Louise Hay inspired, that I did, that I give out to my clients normally. I'm going to be giving that to you for free if you call and have a clarity call with me, just as a freebie, just so for you to have, so that either way you get something out of this. So it is absolutely free, once again, and really just intended to deep dive so that we can figure out what's holding you back. Because really most people just need like a knock on the door and say, hey, so this is what's up. And then some people decide that they would like further help, and some people decide that they have it. And that is what I am here for, is to really just give you that time to have someone to talk with about this, because I know all too well that most people do not. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to our little chat today. I hope that you've gotten some value out of it, and that you've been able to write down some of these steps so that you can take them yourself and see how they affect your life and the lives of everyone around you. Because once you affect you, man in the mirror, it will start reflecting out to everything around you. So again, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you all in this group. This has been Daniela of Redesign Your Life, and I will see you all later.